President Zhang, Ambassador Chen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Kevin Lau, father of 4 children with a loving wife and a citizen of Hong Kong. I'm also a trained doctor who aspires to fulfill, to the best of my abilities and judgment, the mission of saving lives. Born and raised in Hong Kong, I care deeply about my home, and today I'd like to speak truthfully about the human rights situation in Hong Kong, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, and how our motherland has helped us to reduce infections, reduce morbidity, and to save lives. In UN's Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it states that the fundamental human rights should be protected and people's well-being need to be protected as one's human right. In Article 25, it reads, "Everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including medical care." As a doctor, I'm convinced that the health and safety of any local citizen is the most important human right, especially in today's Hong Kong. It is a basic human right to have access to healthcare, to be treated when ill, and at the end of one's life, to die with dignity. All these have been greatly impacted and has affected all Hong Kong people in this current wave of the pandemic. We are now in the 5th wave of COVID-19 Omicron outbreak, where we are experiencing an alarming rate of tens of thousands of daily infections, as well as experiencing one of the highest mortality rates of COVID in the world. Without any doubt, Hong Kong is in the throes of its worst ever coronavirus outbreak, and our healthcare system has been confronted with many challenges. It has put an enormous strain on frontline medical workers who are now stressed physically, mentally, and emotionally, many of whom have contracted COVID themselves, and working in environments that are extremely short-staffed. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how serious the situation is in Hong Kong right now. We are living in a difficult time, but it is not the time for despair. The citizens of our city could see that at this 11th hour, no one came to help us with preserving our basic human right of access to healthcare of our motherland. On February 16th, President Xi Jinping gave an important order to mobilize all available manpower and resources and adopt all necessary measures to safeguard the lives and health of Hong Kong people. Within days, our motherland quickly collected all available resources and convened medical experts to respond to Hong Kong's request for urgent assistance. The central government has provided Hong Kong unceasing support in the fight against the pandemic, seen in at least 5 major areas. First, experts, sending at least 3 delegations of experts in epidemiology and critical care to Hong Kong, offering timely, professional, practical advice on enhancing Hong Kong's strategy and in identifying the priority areas of reducing infection, morbidity, and death rates. Second, testing, providing full support on Hong Kong's testing capacity through mobile testing vehicles and over several hundreds of medical professionals, allowing us to greatly enhance our sampling and testing capabilities. Third, isolation and treatment, assisting in building emergency hospitals and 9 community isolation and treatment facilities to cater for around 30,000 patients. With more isolation facilities in place, more patients can be put in isolation and quarantined earlier, allowing us to flatten the curve and minimize the spread of the virus. Fourth, medical supplies. The central government has donated a wide range of medical supplies from N95 and KN95 masks, rapid antigen test kits, and Chinese medicines for COVID-19 patients. Fifth, the supply of food and necessities, ensuring a stable supply of food and necessities through cross-border cargo transport with centralized cargo transfer points, resuming rail cargo transport, as well as expanding our water transport, has allowed the basic needs of Hong Kong people to be met at this difficult time. Our motherland has yielded staunch, broad support to the Hong Kong SAR government in the fight against the pandemic. Albeit their own task of pandemic control, various mainland provinces have volunteered to support Hong Kong, including our neighboring Guangdong. The total supplies to Hong Kong have summed up to over renminbi 900 million yuan. That is around 150 million US dollars. Such is an extraordinary, selfless act of support. Doctors and nurses from our motherland were willing to leave behind their own families and their own children to risk their lives to come to Hong Kong at this time to serve the people of Hong Kong. This has enabled us to increase our abilities to quarantine, to test, to treat, and to coordinate better efforts against this virus. This has strengthened Hong Kong's people's confidence in our fight against the pandemic. The unwavering national support embodies sacrificial efforts of professionals, represents the care and concern of people in helping one another in the nation, and epitomizes the country's strength in its call for unity. This comes in stark contrast to the attacks on us by Media Freedom Coalition during the rise of the fifth wave that we're going through. As we're going through our toughest time, the Media Freedom Coalition launched an attack on Hong Kong, criticizing a lack of freedom of speech. These accusations came at a time when our death rates were soaring, and it could not have been a more insensitive and heartless time. During this pandemic, from my humble observations, our freedom of speech has been maintained, and there has been a plethora of opinions, ideas, suggestions, and constructive criticisms given by different experts, politicians, leaders, and citizens of Hong Kong. And there's definitely been no shortage of opinions on how we should be fighting this pandemic wave. In Hong Kong, the most urgent task we have at hand is to curb the COVID-19 spread and to safeguard the public's health. We do not need false accusations thrown at us regarding our freedom of speech. Hong Kong is in desperate need of humanitarian aid and immediate pandemic response, which has only been supported by our motherland without any reservation. In unity, it shows that we are one family with our motherland, and the mainland of China cares deeply about Hong Kong's well-being. In the past week, with our motherland support, we see our pandemic more contained and the daily infections to be about half of what it was at its peak. This week, the World Health Organization has also acknowledged the importance of our motherland support in containing the Hong Kong pandemic. I'd like to take this opportunity to extend my appreciation for our motherland's stance in protecting Hong Kong's core interests in saving human lives by sending the best possible assistance, and to thank our motherland's unfailing support to contain the pandemic. I'd like to especially recognize and thank our experts, our medical professionals, and our frontline staff in Hong Kong and from our motherland for risking your lives to preserve and to fight and to safeguard the basic human right of Hong Kong people to stay alive, to have access to healthcare when needed, and at the end of one's life to die of dignity. With our motherland, I am very confident that we will conquer this pandemic and have great hopes and aspirations for the future of Hong Kong. I have faith we will stand strong. I have faith in my country. Thank you.